if I don't call them and tell them how I can help them, I can't help them. They're not going to know. So if I don't tell them, they won't know. And that mindset, just like saying that in my head, helps me to then take that next step and pick up the phone.
Are you ready to unlock the secrets of brand innovation? Here you'll discover unexpected ways to make your brand soar in value. Get ready for inspiring stories, actionable tips, and insights you'll need to build your brand and learn an entirely new way to fly. This is the Hummingbird Effect. And now your host, Wendy Coulter.
Hi, I'm Wendy Coulter, and I help CEOs and marketing leaders unlock the hidden power of their brands. For years, business leaders have focused on marketing tactics, but what truly matters is building a strong brand. Think of it like the Hummingbird Effect. Small innovations in branding can lead to surprisingly big results. Increased valuation, stronger culture, and a marketing message that resonates. Today, I have the guy hitting the buttons over in the corner, Joe. You guys haven't heard him much on the show in the past, but he's joining us today to just add his flavor to the show and be my partner in crime. So, hi, Joe.
Hello. Excited to be here. Thank you.
So today we're going to dive deep into the Hummingbird Effect with one of my friends in business, Liz Rossilli with Sales Savvy. She is a sales coach, consultant, and speaker who really loves to help her clients celebrate the wins. I've got this cute Celebrate the Wins poster up on the wall in my office, which keeps me motivated in my sales cycles at Hummingbird. Liz and I first connected, I think I have this right, many years ago when you were selling swag to marketing directors in the pharmaceutical and healthcare space. She's a powerhouse networker, and we formed a small group of professionals who would get together and help each other with our businesses. Fast forward today, she is all things sales, training, guiding clients with process, list building, and accountability, building teams. So today we're going to chat with Liz about how she has seen the Hummingbird Effect in action as seemingly small innovations lead to those big wins. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I'm excited to have you here. So I want to cover some fun facts first about Liz. So I have one. I know that you love your clothes, shoes, and bags just like I do. So that would be my fun fact. And Liz and I have some similar tastes because we were in an airport and she went and picked up this gorgeous blouse when we were traveling with the Carey Chamber. And I was upset because you got to it first. But it's been really fun to travel with you with the Chamber and continue our relationship there now that you're serving on the board there. And I think I'm the one who convinced you.
You were the one when I said at first, I don't think so. You're like, no, yes. And so you convinced me to join the board. And I pretty much do whatever Wendy tells me to do with the board. Like, you have to go to this event. You have to come to, Nashville. I'm like, okay, Wendy says I have to go. And so she knows. I listen to what she says.
It's so much fun, and it's great to see you thriving as a board member at the Carey Chamber. I just love that. You're adding so much value with your small business series that you're doing for small business owners. And it's great to see that come to fruition within the Chamber. The Chamber was always about small business, but I think you've really elevated that program. So Thank you for doing that.
I didn't realize how much it needed. I needed that, the voice for small businesses. So, and now 2 years in a row, I brought in the most new members for the membership drive. So,
You're a rock star.
I will have to keep that going next year too.
Well, and that just kind of ties into you being this amazing salesperson. Why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit and your business journey and talk to me? I know I've heard part of the story about your dad and how you kind of got into sales at a young age.
Yeah, so my dad was an entrepreneur and an inventor, and we always thought he was a little crazy down in the basement or in the garage, tinkering and building things and trying come up with the latest new product. But when I was in college, he invented a product called Cape Cod Polish, which is a metal polishing cloth that works on silver, brass, every metal. And it took him 7 years to invent it, to create it. And it was one of those things where he used to have an antique lighting store. So I would spend my summers polishing brass lamps.
Wow.
And yeah, I knew every product on the market, and it was messy and smelled bad and all the things. And we had to use all different products, and it was just gross. And he said there has to be a better way. And so he went and researched at the Boston Public Library every Monday the patents of other products. And then he created Cape Cod Polish. And so when I graduated college, I ran the office for a few years and then decided I want to get out of the office and wanted to go have some fun. So I started cold calling on hardware stores when I was about 24. My brother had been doing it for a couple of years, and it seemed like a great life, just, traveling. And so I started selling, and that's where I fell in love with sales, because that, it's that fear of like doing it, getting out of the car, like walking into a hardware store and asking to talk to the manager. As a young woman traveling by myself, it seems crazy now. I probably would never let my daughter do what I did with no cell phones and no GPS. But, and I just walked in, and when I could get the demo, and when you feel like everything you say is the right thing to say, and they're nodding, and you can tell they're interested and getting excited about it, that adrenaline rush you get when they say yes was just like infectious. And so that made me fall in love with sales. And so from that day forward, I have done many, many different sales jobs, but whatever I try to do in another form, I end up back in sales. So, and I thought over the years that everyone loved sales. And during COVID, I had been selling promotional products, and then had to pivot a little bit and started helping some of my friends with their businesses and figure out how to pivot during COVID, and was kind of pushed to be like, this is what you need to be doing. You need to be helping other people. And I didn't realize that what comes so naturally to me from all my experience did not come naturally to other people. So I love being able to help with the prospecting and the outreach and the all things sales.
Well, I know you've helped me in so many different ways over the years. And I think it's really cool to hear you say that you were kind of scared of it in the beginning. I think there is a fear that comes, with sales, no matter how long you do it. I mean, unlike you, I was selling shoes in Dad's shoe store at a really young age, like as a little child.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably, I don't remember a fear being around that necessarily, but I know when I started my business, it was just always, okay, I've got to do this. I've got to find the next thing. And if you're in business, I don't really, even with some of the larger companies that Hummingbird works with some now, the people who run the businesses, own the businesses, and are even in other departments other than the sales department have to be selling. I mean, in one way or another, it's kind of just part of the world we're in. And so, but I love that you use the word fear, and it makes me know that it's okay, because I'm still scared sometimes.
No, I am too. I mean, anytime, especially if you pick up the phone is like, you can't see the person on the other end. Everyone feels like, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to interrupt them. And so I think the mindset, I still have to tell myself to this day that, if I don't tell them, if I don't call them and tell them how I can help them, I can't help them. They're not going to know. So if I don't tell them, they won't know. And that mindset, just like saying that in my head, helps me to then take that next step and pick up the phone.
That's great. That's great. Well, so we want to talk about the Hummingbird Effect today. And I think the thing to remember, and I told you a little bit about this before the show with the Hummingbird Effect, is it's about how these small things can have a big impact in another area that's kind of unexpected. And so I'd just love to hear if you can kind of share a specific instance where a seemingly small change in something that you did, marketing, branding, or sales, strategic maybe, in your case, led to a significant or positive outcome in like another area of business.
Yeah, I will talk about one client that I worked with when I was a sales consultant who was just struggling and just so stuck in her business and just wasn't getting any momentum. And um, I just said to her, I said, well, talk to me like you're talking to a potential client, like what you do. And she couldn't tell me what she was going to do for them. Like she didn't have that plan, like what the package was, what they were going to get. She didn't have that clear in her head. And so we sat down and we took like an hour and kind of wrote out what the actual like how long each meeting was going to be, what they were going to go over. And like at the end, it was like this aha moment where I could just see her whole demeanor change. And like she got excited to reach out to people. Her confidence went way up. And it was just like by just talking through, I think so many people in business, they're not clear on all those specifics, and people can't buy if they're confused. And so it was just this awesome, like I can't even tell you how that it was like this light around her happened of just like she sat up straight, like she just seemed, it was amazing. So that was I think just talking through what it was that she did really helped her.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. She gained some confidence as the result of a sales strategy, right?
Yes.
Or
yeah.
a business strategy. That
Yeah.
sounds almost like you went deeper. So talk about how that change was implemented. Like, have you seen the results of that now for her?
Even just in her like social media, like I won't use the word forced, but I strongly recommended that she get on video on social media and talk about what she does and just her confidence. And then once she was clear on what she was going to offer, she was able to reach out to so many more people. So her business just really grew after that, which was just so great to see.
That's awesome. And it sounds like that's measurable for her too.
Yes.
Which is really good. That's the great thing about you being a sales consultant is the measurable is pretty easy to find in what you do, right?
Yes.
Do you have another example of something like that?
I will say that, one of my favorite, when I was selling promotional products back in the 90s, when I used to sell the only GlaxoSmithKline, they were getting ready to launch a product, and he was going to be ordering 1 million pens.
Wow.
And I wanted this order, and so everyone at the time was doing the Bic wide body pen, he was like pushing me, saying like, I want this pen. And I knew that my competitors would all be coming in with that pen. So I brought in a different pen, and I just faced it so he couldn't see the logo on it. So it was facing me. And so all he saw was the pen. And I put the Bic pen next to it. And I said, do you want, like, this will be the drug name, this will be your pen compared to the pen that everyone else has, and just flipping it around so he couldn't see the logo, and just saying like, do you want to be like everyone else, or do you want to have your own branded pen, and so just that little, and it was something I didn't plan to do until I was in that meeting, but I was like left there and I got the order, for 1 million pens. So that was,
look at that ultimately led to a success for you, right?
Yes,
That's amazing.
And then it was like known as as his pen, compared to the same pen that everyone else did.
Do you want to stay ahead with insightful tips and industry-leading knowledge to build your business value through better branding? Sign up for the Birds of Wisdom email newsletter from Hummingbird Creative Group. The newsletter is packed with expert advice and the latest trends to help you elevate your brand. Visit hummingbird-creative.com today to subscribe. Don't miss out. Join the community, and let's soar together.
That brings me to like creativity and innovation when it comes to the Hummingbird Effect. I think we hear the word innovation. I was actually with a client last week, and we were using one of the people in the room was using the word innovation to describe the company. And this is not a tech company at all. And the marketing director was like, I don't really think we're that innovative. But I think like those little things like that are innovations. When you come up with an idea that's something different, something creative, that's an innovation. Um, and that's what the hummingbird effect really is too, is these really small innovations that lead to something big. Um, and for him, I think it might have really opened his eyes to how to differentiate, which is an even bigger like marketing strategy is just through this little pin, this one tactic, you were able to kind of open up his eyes to the idea of being different. I think that's huge. Did you ever get feedback from him? Like, did you get other orders? Did he let you be creative going forward?
Well, there was a million of those pens out there then, so I would see them sometimes and be like, "There's my pen," and I was just very proud of thinking outside the box and doing it a little differently instead of trying to fit in and just go in on price and try to go 2 cents less than everyone else to get that order. I just wanted it to be unique and different. So I think, so I think that's true where the innovation and I always try to look at things from a different angle than the norm and see like come in at it and say, okay, if this is how everyone's doing it, how can we do it a little differently to make a bigger impact?
So, talk a little bit about maybe some different strategies or even tactics that you've seen in sales, like packaging up a program, right? But what are some other things that you've seen in sales that are small things that people can do to kind of move the needle? Because I know for me, it's like a continuous struggle. I've been doing sales for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I still am like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call this company and I'm going to get this voicemail tree today. And I'm not going to be able to get to a directory where I can actually put in a person's name. And this is so hard. And it can really like wear you down. So talk about like some small things that maybe people can do in their sales kind of cycle that help get you through that can help lead to, more confidence and bigger things.
Yeah, I think that there's, people have this negative feeling when they hear the word sales. I have to do sales, and I think it doesn't have to be that way. And I tell people that it's really about just sharing your passion is what sales is. That's selling, is sharing your passion. And so I think that, first of all, I compare it to like if someone's applying for a job and there's someone who the hiring manager already knows them. Maybe they're, it's someone in their network or someone's kid who's in there, but there's some connection already, right? Compared to someone just sending in an application. So if you just send an email to somebody, like there is no attachment to that at all. But if you have somehow gotten so that they get to know you even just a little bit. So I always tell people to start with their existing network, and you don't have to be always trying to get out there and get all new people. Like we have people in our network that either know people or could be potential clients themselves. So I think that's a really important thing. Lately, since COVID, people have been focusing so much on social media because at the time that was the only way we could be growing our business and getting the word out, that they haven't come back to realize that, that's not the only way now. So doing little things like sending a handwritten note. I mean, it seems like so basic and like, oh yeah, but think of how many people actually do it and what you feel like when you receive that note too. And like the phone, I talk about the phone all the time. Like if you send an email to someone, they can't feel your passion. They can't hear it in an email. And how many emails do we get and you just fly through them compared to if you pick up the phone and even if you have to leave a voicemail, you can still share your passion and they'll hear it on the voicemail compared to an email or just a social media post or something. So I believe in you are always the face of your brand. So being out there and and showing who you are is going to really, I think, help your brand. But I always tell people, like, if you're afraid of the phone, think about your competitors picking up the phone, and they're probably not. So if you want to stand out, pick up the phone and but don't do it to just be like, oh, I made my 10 calls. Like, you have to make sure you're calling the right people and have the list, like a good solid list of people that are truly your prospects. But I think that can really, really have a big impact.
Talk about that a little bit and how you've seen the difference between someone who has just calls a list versus a list of good prospects. Because I think you and I have talked about that recently and how important that is.
Yeah, someone I talked to, a client had bought a list, and had like 500 or 1,000 companies on this list. They're like, oh, I have a list. I'm like, what does that list mean to you? It means nothing. You don't know who anyone is on that list, and how do you know they're really qualified compared to like going through, and there's so many resources out there now to really hone in. I feel like a lot of companies or people are tired of hearing like, who's your target market, but truly knowing who your target is and like niching down as much as possible to say, my target is companies that have between 25 and 50 employees and are, this size, and here's their values that line up with my values, and just and that they live and they work in Raleigh, like, or pick a place and just really start there, and then you can expand out from there. But the more specific you can be, you can do research on them. You can use LinkedIn. You can use some of the resources. You can Google. You can look at their website and really get information. Have they written an article lately? So when you call, you have more information than just their name and their phone number.
Right. Well, and you gave me great advice. I've worked on lists on and off different ways, and I think your tie to branding and culture that led us to, talk about that best places to work list. That's been a great key for me because I can relate to those people. Like, I'm trying to build a great workforce, and so I can relate to other people who are part of a great workforce, and that culture piece is part of branding is a great tie. Usually can get a conversation going really easily with that. And so that has been really good. And I mean, honestly, like, talk about a hummingbird effect, just a little tiny piece of advice from you. And I feel like I'm on a great track with a new list. And that's been pretty cool. Especially when, let's say, I won't say the company, but when a marketing director at a pretty large company actually does answer the phone, which was a bit surprising. I hadn't done calls in a really long time just because it does get frustrating. But when someone actually answers the phone and has a great conversation with you and is attentive and listens, it gives you this adrenaline rush. It's a great feeling.
That is such a big win. I say if a human answers the phone, like, put a star up. That's a win.
Okay, I'll put the star up on my poster when I go back to the office. So talk to me about any other stories around Hummingbird Effect you can think of.
I will talk about the one when how I started my consulting company, because I think that is a pretty remarkable story. So there is a local person named Wolwyn Port. I don't know if you know him, but we met on
I would know that name if I knew him.
And he's an amazing person. But I met him during COVID we're on a panel together for some nonprofit that we were just speaking on Zoom, because that's all everyone had. And I decided there was something about him on the call. And so I reached out to him, connected on LinkedIn. We scheduled a one-to-one. We had this great call. And then he said to me, I was telling him about my history, my story, and I was still selling promotional products. And he said, we're going to start a YouTube channel together. And I was like, okay. And so he's like, you need to come up with a name, and it's going to be all about, like, he called him, my dad's name was Bill, so he called him Billisms. We're going to talk about Billisms and your history in sales. And so I was like, okay. So every 2 weeks we created. It was called Selling Success, and we got on YouTube every 2 weeks. No one ever watched it, but we made them every 2 weeks for 2 years. We made these videos together where we didn't plan. He just asked me questions, and he's really great at like taking what you say and listening, and then like sounds better when it comes out of his mouth, I think. But after 2 years, and within that time, about a year in or a year and a half, I started my sales consulting company. And after 2 years, he's like, we're done. He just said, we're done. We're stopping. And I said, okay. I just enjoyed talking to him so much. But what he was doing was he was showing me how much I knew about sales, because I thought not what I knew was nothing special. And so
Right.
what he was doing was showing me how much I knew, building my confidence. And because of that YouTube channel that no one watched, I had the confidence to go ahead and put myself out there and start my sales consulting company.
So, have you thought about like optimizing the YouTube channel and actually promoting the Billisms
I don't.
in your business today and getting some people to watch
Maybe
this?
I could I don't know. It was just kind of this one of these things that it was just like an exercise that he was like giving me this
It's
gift,
so
And so,
interesting.
yeah, it was amazing.
So,
And
what's your favorite Billism? I want to hear that.
my dad, and I still tell people this today, that he would say to me, we worked in the office together all the time, and there was no roadmap. When you're creating a new company, there's nothing to really follow. You're just trial and error. And
Right.
this was computers were just starting, so there was no software. There was no, like, we used to advertise in the New York Times magazine or something, and people would call. And when they called, there was no database of like you type in their zip code and it tells them where to buy it as we were growing. So I used to have to make Microsoft Word lists, and then every time we got a new account, I had to add them and then reprint out the list, and I had a binder with every state, and I would have to go through and look up. So there was just always trial and error, and I would get frustrated sometimes, and things wouldn't work right, and he would always say, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And I still hear him, he's passed away, and I hear him in my head saying that. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And that's what kind of makes me, keeps me going when things are hard, to be like, yeah, this isn't for everyone. This is hard, and that's okay. And I'm going to figure it out.
That's great. That's great. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. How do you think in today's environment, people can stay kind of nimble? And so, what are some trends that you see that kind of help people adjust as that environment changes? I know CRMs have come to play in sales. Like, talk through some of those kinds of changes you've seen and how that plays in.
Yeah, I think I think you can get so caught up in the latest and the greatest, and like, and the, shiny object and the squirrel, whatever you want to call it. But I try to say, keep it simple. And like the selling techniques that were around 30 years ago still work now. And it's really about building relationships. So for me, I do a lot of networking, but it's about, intentional networking. You can't just go to everything and just meet people and then say, oh, if they're interested, they'll call me, So I think that's what people do, is they just collect business cards, and then they're like, oh, I had some good conversations, so they'll call if they want to do business with me. And that's just not how it works, right? So being intentional and follow up is probably the most important thing that I can share, is that you have to follow up, and you can't just follow up one time and then wait a month and follow up a month later, because they're not going to remember that you followed up the month before. So I would say consistent follow up, and doing it in intentional, like, creative ways to show them that you're not just, oh, here's my list, I'm just gonna check the boxes and move on. Like building true relationships. That's what sales is just relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it all goes back to kind of that basic thing that I saw in Dad's shoe store and you saw when you went out to sell for your dad, that just getting to know people.
Yes.
Right.
And for them to
And-
trust you that
Right.
I mean, my brother and I were like the most, he was 26, looked like he was 16, and I was 24. And just, us, like, first of all, they're not used to seeing someone walking into the store, trying to shine up copper pipes or something in there. Or I've gone out I had to go out in the parking lot and do the rims on their car. Yeah. Like I didn't care. I polished whatever they wanted me to do, to get the sale.
What to need polished.
But I think it's just like putting yourself out there like that and them trusting you.
Yeah. I think you should dig back out the YouTube channel. That actually sounds really cool to me. I might be interested in listening to it. What you think, Joe? You want to help our reproduce our YouTube channel?
Yeah. Are you just, sometimes people like the old stuff. They're a little embarrassed of it. Are you a little embarrassed of
I
it?
think so. I should, before I answer, I should probably watch a few of them because I don't remember. I made us little shirts, though. We had white shirts that said "Selling Success" on it, and he would do like the little, the YouTube banner to go on top and stuff. So I should probably pull them up and look. But
I think you should.
no, but it was just like talking sales.
Like you could make it something that you just hit on social media like once a month. Like, look at this billism.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
to use
just
it
to
as-
edit them down.
Well, and you said it built your confidence, and so there's probably some nuggets in there that you
True.
haven't gone back
True.
and
Yes.
looked at. That's very cool. That's very cool. Well, I really appreciate you coming in today and sharing some of your stories about the hummingbird effect. Thank you so much for your time. We all have a limited time. I love spending it with you. Absolutely. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the listeners out there for joining us today. And now it's time for you to go out and find your hummingbird effect. And remember,
If it was easy, everyone would do it.
that's right. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Hummingbird Effect with Wendy Coulter. We hope you found this episode valuable. Please be sure to rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more or to work with Wendy and her team, go to hummingbird-creative.com.